Good morning, and welcome again with your peace like a river, or your pain like an arrow, or your strength like a mountain. As noted in our opening words, you are welcome here, whatever state you find yourself in and whatever you are bringing. I'm Reverend Annie Gonzalez, the acting senior minister of First Parish in Bedford, a Unitarian Universalist congregation where we have been gathering for a long time to try to be better people together and seek a deeper truth together. And we have a lot going on in this congregation, which is a lot of fun and very exciting. And last night, I had a blast attending the Irish music celebration. So just shout out to everyone who made that happen, the volunteers who made the food and were at the ticket place, and all the musicians, the youth choirs, the Faulkner Carroll family. It was really a very fun time. And there's more opportunities for fun and food coming up. Next Sunday, March 19th, is going to be the kickoff of our stewardship campaign. And that's when we ask you for money so that we can keep having a church. And so we will hear a sermon from Reverend Megan Lines to inspire us. We will have some food and celebration right afterwards, provided by the Stewardship Committee. And then we will have a salon to talk about the state of financial matters here at First Parish in Bedford. And that will be available on Zoom and in person. So we want to warmly invite the Zoom folks. We cannot feed you virtually, but we can include you in the salon virtually. So please come and we will discuss how things are going financially here. And also after service today, there is a climate cafe discussion at 11:30 in the Bacon Room. And if you're thinking, wait, isn't there a different event too? There is. And if you have figured out how to be in two places at once, let me know, because I'd love to be at both. However, the Climate Cafe discussion is 11:30 in the Bacon Room, and it will feature Marjorie Romer talking about how to stop dirty banking, and Brown Pulliam talking about UU Mass Action Advocacy Day, so you don't want to miss that. Also, I wanted to just remind everyone that the plant fair is coming. So check your email and stay tuned of how you can make this awesome event happen, because we need everybody to participate in different plant-related ways, so take a peek. And then I want to invite up Nora Bailey, there she is, to tell us about another exciting multi-generational opportunity that is coming up for all of us.
Hello. So Ferry Beach is coming up, and we need more people to come. So I'm gonna tell you about it. It's really fun for all ages, because there's a lot of games that you can play together, like volleyball, and then this game called Spud. There's a tournament at the end where like a lot of people can watch you and you can earn a trophy. My sister earned one last time. There's also crafts and indoor games they could play if you don't like playing volleyball or Spud. There's hot chocolate and campfires and s'mores. That's fun and delicious. And a beach where you can make sand castles with your family. My dad also has a rock balancing thing that you can do. He does cool things with rocks. And Ferry Beach it's really a fun place to go hang out with family and friends if you want a vacation, but you don't want to have to spend a bunch of money on like a plane or something.
Nora, when can people do this? Do you know? When is that going to happen?
It's Mother's Day weekend.
It's Mother's Day weekend.
So you can spend time with your mom, make her feel loved. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Nora. And yes, just to reiterate, our congregation is resuming the tradition of a Ferry Beach retreat on Mother's Day weekend. And so check your email for details or find the table in the common room for details. There will be more announcements coming your way about this exciting opportunity. And with that, I invite you to rise in body or in spirit and join in our unison affirmation printed in your order of worship. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. El amor es el espíritu de esta iglesia, y el servicio es su ley. Este es nuestro gran pacto, vivir juntos en paz, buscar la verdad en espíritu de amor, y ayudarnos los unos a los otros. You may be seated.
All right, with that, I think we're going to have all of our youth choirs come on up. So as Reverend Andy mentioned, last night many of us were here late at the Irish Music Celebration, which was just so much fun for me, and thank you to everyone who came. And we wanted to share the song that we did last night once again. You'll see there's fewer of us today because there is a Destination Imagination tournament right now, which is a really great STEM STEAM event that a lot of our youth choirs participate in. But we're really excited to share this with you. So if you want to try to sing along with us, you may. Good luck. And when I introduced this song, I at least for the older ones, I told them this song exists in kindergarten music classrooms and Irish pubs, which are not that much fun. If you think about it. Okay,
So last night I was joking with Annie and her housemates, and I said, well, we're going to have Rattlenbog, and then I'm going to ask you all to get a little Zen. So it's not the smoothest of transitions, but I'm going to try. Because first we're going to say, what is that? Glass of water. So let me ask you, is that glass of water full? Who thinks the glass of water is half full? Who thinks the glass of water is partly empty? Okay, you know what? Let me do this. Hold on. All right, there we go. All right, is it half full? Is it half empty? So, a student was seeking wisdom. And this student, she went to every teacher, and she kept asking, I want to know all there is to know about being a compassionate person, about being a loving, kind person. I want to know, how do I become better? And so she finally found this one teacher, this Zen master. And the master invited her in for a cup of tea. And as he put out the teacup in front of her, he said, I'm going to pour some tea for you now. And so he started to pour the tea into the cup. And the cup became partway full, became more full, and then it hit the top. And the Zen master kept pouring. And the tea just spilled everywhere, all over the place. And the student, she says, you're making a mess. What are you doing? Just stop pouring the tea. There's too much tea. And the Zen master said, well, that is the problem. If your glass is full, there is no room for you to receive any knowledge. So even if your glass is half full, you might have some space. But if your glass is completely empty, you might not even know what you can fill it with. So the story is that you need to make space in your glass. And now I'm ready to learn. And I hope the rest of you would like to come with me to learn. I invite our pre-K to 7th graders, 6th, 7th, upstairs in 204. Pre-K through 5th, we're in the common room. Thank you all so much.
As I mentioned in our announcements, we are kicking off our stewardship campaign next Sunday. And as part of that, we want to take a little time to hear about what First Parish means to some of the people in our community. And so Bob Johnson has agreed today to share a little about what First Parish means to him. I welcome Bob up.
So when Annie asked me, can it be heard? When Annie asked me to do this, I didn't know that, first of all, I was the stewardship moment before the stewardship drive starts. And secondly, that I'd have to follow all those kids, both of which were a little unexpected today. I became a Unitarian first in Virginia, where my wife decided that our son needed some religious education, and this was 30-some years ago. So we started attending a UU church. And to my surprise, I discovered I was a UU. I didn't know it walking in the door, but I came to understand that later. My earlier beliefs had all been around what I wasn't, and a rejection of the mainline church in which I grew up. But I came to discover that there's another way to this, and I believe this church represents that. When we moved up here, we tried a number of UU churches, and then my wife came back and said, you know, I went to a plant fair, and these guys in Bedford seem to be really very nice, and we ought to try that. So, as is true, I'm sure, of many other people, I'm a better man today because of the love of a good woman who pointed me in the right direction on many occasions. My journey to this place is really about, well, it's changed over the years. I started out as a Unitarian because we were all seekers of our own truths. I became more and more of a Unitarian around the positive nature of our shared beliefs. And now I don't have a lot of those. I'm going to be 75 in a few months, and I don't have a lot of those questions anymore. But I'm here today, and I try to be here every week. It may falter during tax season. I apologize for that. But I'm here today because I'm in community with people of goodwill and character. And what I mean by goodwill is that, as I look out on this group, these are people who care for the well-being of others. And what I mean by character is these are people who want to be and want to live a life that lives up to their own standards. And that's simply why I'm here. Since, as many of you know, my wife passed back in December, and that has actually made it possible for me to be more generous with this organization. I've doubled my pledge since then. I encourage all of you to be as generous as you can, because this place, we've gone through some tough times. Everybody's gone through COVID. We had a very popular minister leave. But this place still rocks. Maybe not quite the way Mark does, but it does rock. And as a former minister used to say, we punch above our weight. I think we'll do that again.
Not much more needs to be said to introduce this morning's offering. I invite you to give generously as you are able as we receive this morning's collection. Back in 2012, 2013, I did my ministerial internship out in Davis, California. And part of that job was to run their campus ministry, their group for college students at UC Davis. And that was a lot of fun. And I learned a lot from those young people. And one of the stories that one of them shared has always stuck with me. One of the students came in one day, and we always had a check-in at the beginning of our meetings, much like we do here at some of our small group ministries and our youth groups. And this student told a story about her chemistry project. Now, she had had some kind of chemistry lab project. I never took those kind of science classes, so forgive me if I mischaracterize it, but it involved doing an experiment and tracking it over time and lots of writing it up, and it was involved. It was complicated. And somehow, maybe she was sick, I don't remember the circumstances, she missed the day that they did the beginning of all the work in class. And so she was behind. And she knew she had to go in and do the work and make it up in order to pass the class. But it was daunting and seemed kind of hard, and she kept not doing it, and then it was like she really, really had to do that, and time was getting short. And the more and more she thought about it, the more and more stressed out she was, and the less she wanted to deal with it. So finally, she decided she needed to tell a friend that she was just about to fail her class because she just couldn't get herself to go in and do this project that she knew she could do. She told the friend it felt like this simple science project had become a fire-breathing dragon. She said that weekend, a small crew of her friends, some of whom were in the UU campus ministry with her, showed up at her house with funny cardboard shields and swords. And they said, "We're going to go slay that dragon." And they took her to the chemistry building, and she started her project, and she passed the class. I love that story so much because who among us has not had a fire-breathing dragon that we did not want to face? And wouldn't it be incredible if every time a group of our friends came dressed in funny costumes and said, "We're going to go do it together"? It's a fairly common metaphor, actually, for the things that we don't want to face in our lives. Pema Chodron, who is a Buddhist teacher, writes in The Wisdom of No Escape also about a dragon metaphor. A dragon, she writes, is unfinished business. It's fear that really needs to be worked with. It's the science project you're afraid of failing and ashamed to not have done. It's the grief you're avoiding because it's too painful. It's the circumstances you are trying to be in denial about, the hard conversation you're not having. It's whatever causes us to feel vulnerable. Now, Chodron is very no-nonsense in her teaching. Like the story we heard from Lisa Maria this morning, you can't pour the water if the cup is too full, and you have to go face the dragon. So often there is something in the way, though. Too much tea in the cup, and too much self-protective armor we've put on because we are scared. We're trying to protect ourselves and think that once we feel a little safer, then we can face the dragon. But no, says Chodron, to fight the dragon, you have to take off your armor. And on the one hand, you do have to do this alone. We do have to ultimately face things for ourselves. Nobody but that student could actually do the science project. But we also take refuge in others. Chodron, the Buddhist that she is, says we take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. In the Buddha, the teacher, the Dharma, the work, and the Sangha, the community. Taking refuge in the Buddha means that you are willing to spend your life acknowledging or reconnecting your awareness, learning that every time you meet the dragon, you take off more armor, particularly the armor that covers your heart, Chodron writes. She says you spend your life acknowledging or reconnecting with your awareness. Your whole life. You never do it and then you're done. This is why we have things like church or Buddhist sanghas or many other spiritual communities. Because there's always more armor to take off, there's always new lessons to learn. And I hate that, because I would love to be done. I would love to say, look, I've learned so much and my cup of tea is full and I'm good. Dump it out, says life. I have more to pour in, and you have more armor to shed. One of the big scary dragons that I don't like to look at is the news. There's so much that is hard that is going on. This morning, Alan highlighted just one of the many situations all around our world where there is violence that is hard to even fathom. And these days, I'm fortunate that a lot in my personal life is going pretty well. So for me, the place I feel most vulnerable is when I look at the big picture. But Chodron continues. Taking refuge in the Sangha is very much the same thing. It does not mean that we join a club where we're all good friends, talk about the Buddha together, nod sagely, and criticize the people who don't believe the way we do. Oh, darn. No. Taking refuge in the Sangha means taking refuge in the siblinghood of people who are committed to taking off their armor. The other day, I was co-working in the same space as one of my housemates, as I often do. And she logged into an online court proceeding, which isn't that unusual for her. She works for an organization called Community Justice Exchange, and they support the National Bail and Bond Fund Network. And so legal matters are a big part of her job. I could overhear these court proceedings that were happening on Zoom or some other virtual platform, and I soon realized that these were the court proceedings for activists who had been arrested in Atlanta in protests against Cop City. In case you, like me, have been also trying to avoid the news, here's what I'm talking about. The New York Times reported Atlanta's plan to build a sprawling police and fire training center amid a 1,000-acre stretch of urban woodland has become the focus of intense protests, drawing opposition from environmentalists who want to preserve the woods and activists who say the center will accelerate the militarization of the police. Police here have already responded to protests with militarized tactics, chemical weapons, and domestic terrorism charges, Micah Hurskind, a community organizer, said. With plans to include a mock city for police to train in urban warfare tactics, Cop City would only further provide police with training and equipment to suppress dissent and terrorize Black and working class communities. But this is more than just a fight over police conduct, said Will Harlan, the Southeast Director for the Center for Biological Diversity. It's an effort to preserve Metro Atlanta's dwindling tree canopy, too. The South River Forest is one of the last and largest urban forests in Atlanta and in the country. It is a really special place. It provides a habitat to some rare fish species and rare plant species, and it's one of the largest intact forests we have in the region. As you may know, the protests, while mostly nonviolent, and including a concert near the site, have also had moments of terrifying escalation. One protester, 26-year-old Manuel Esteban Paez Terán, known as Tortuguita, or Little Turtle, has died, and one officer has also been wounded. A recent autopsy showed that Tortuguita's hands were most likely raised when he was shot by law enforcement, and he was most likely in a seated position. I did not really want to think about this. I did not want to listen to these court proceedings, but I take refuge in a community of people who practice taking off armor. And so there I was, facing a dragon. The protesters, one by one, were called on by the judge who charged them with domestic terrorism. Domestic terrorism, which carries a penalty of up to 35 years in prison. Their lawyers were asking for bail, asking for a price to be set, for them to leave jail for now while they move through court proceedings. One person was from Massachusetts, and his lawyer put forward that he's a Zen Buddhist, a peaceful person, no criminal record, with character references from employers and those he had volunteered with. His partner wrote in to say that she would support him through every part of the legal process. He was not near any of the skirmishes, said the lawyer. He was part of the nonviolent crowd in the forest. The judge said she was not there to make any decisions about the charges. She said he was a flight risk and a danger to society. No bail. This person, this Zen Buddhist from Massachusetts, stuck in an Atlanta jail, could easily be one of my friends. The judge systematically denied bail to each and every person, regardless of their circumstances, with only one exception. Grudgingly, the judge granted a $5,000 bail to the lawyer who was acting as a legal observer at the protest. Many lawyers do commit crimes, the judge commented, when the lawyer's lawyer pointed out that he was in fact a lawyer in good standing. And I'm sure that lawyers do commit crimes, but do they commit crimes while wearing neon green hats identifying them as a legal observer? Legal observers are there to do exactly what it sounds like, observe and take notes of what is happening. They wear these bright colors so that they can be easily identified. And this lawyer, who was there to take notes and protect civil rights, was charged with domestic terrorism and had to pay a $5,000 ransom to get out of jail. I will admit that the crackdown on Cop City protesters makes me feel incredibly vulnerable in a way that many of the issues I try not to look at simply don't. Because I'm not in Ukraine, and I'm not in a million other circumstances that people find themselves in that are dangerous. But I am an abolitionist, and I do go to protests. And I know that Georgia is far away, but these are still my people. And when I go to a protest here in Massachusetts, often in my clergy collar to identify me as clergy, or sometimes as a marshal in a bright orange vest, I'm generally not that scared. Sometimes the cars that don't want to wait for the protesters to cross the street make me nervous. Once at a protest in Plymouth, there was an undercover cop who we could tell was carrying a weapon, but we didn't know he was a cop, and we were very scared of what that man was doing there with a weapon. But I've never thought that I could be charged with terrorism. Georgia is far away, but it's also right here. This is our country, with some states leaning very hard into fascism these days, banning books and criminalizing trans people and those seeking abortions, and yes, making it increasingly scary to dissent. I hate this dragon. But as I sat there, I realized I could take some of the armor off of my heart and just feel really scared. And then, after feeling very scared, I realized I wasn't so alone anymore. And so I started following Stop Cop City on Instagram, and I donated to a fund for legal support in Atlanta. I didn't have to face the dragon all alone. And neither do you. Because at our best, we are a community of people taking our armor off together, punching above our weight, like Bob told us. And we are just such a community where I hope people will come to your aid when you have a dragon that you cannot bear to face. It might be the death of a loved one. It might be a flood in your apartment. It might be a scary medical situation. We can't take off your armor for you, and we can't fix the situation for you, but we can be there with you. Whether it is your own body or mind failing you, a family or work situation, or systemic threats like climate change and fascism that make you feel most vulnerable, we are here with you. We can't make it okay. An illness won't go away because you face it. A project you've been avoiding will still need to be done. Climate change is happening no matter what. But together, we can make it possible to move forward and not be stuck. Threats will keep coming, and we will continue to be brave together. I invite you to join in our closing hymn, which is a reprise of the song our youth choir sang for our prelude, "There Are More Waters Rising." The words are in your order of service. There are more waters rising, there are more fires burning, there are more mountains falling. And then we will wade through the water, we will walk through the fires, we will rebuild the mountains. And Natan, yeah, you'll help? Amazing. Thank you.
There
Whatever waters and fires come our way, whatever mountains are falling in your life, you are not alone in wading through, in walking through, and in rebuilding. Let us face all of our dragons, big and small, together.